Louis, great to see you, and thank you for making time to come and have a chat. I know you're busy, so I appreciate you making a bit of time for me. I want to kick off with something that you mentioned to me last time we spoke. You said to me, people think I use slave labor. Now, I imagine that will wind quite a few people up. I mean, just tell us what you mean by that. What's the story there?
Well, you see, in Australia, the minimum wage is $25 an hour. Okay, but in the Philippines, you can get people from sort of $5 or $10 an hour, and so people that are in countries like Australia go, well, you can't possibly live a healthy life earning 150 or $200 a week. It's impossible, and I understand that because in Australia, I've got people that are earning $1,000 or even $2,000, and they literally can't buy a house. They
Yeah.
can't save up a deposit to buy a house. They're just struggling to cover their normal living expenses. And then, they see that they can hire a staff member for a couple of $100 a week, and they're like, well, how's that possible that this person can be having any sort of reasonable, lifestyle? Because they're comparing their lifestyle to the people in the Philippines lifestyle. Now, the thing that we know is I've got staff in the Philippines that are on like $200 a week, and they're buying houses and buying new cars and stuff that we could never do on that sort of money. But the difference is that their whole cost of living is so much lower for most of the things. And they're also happy to have a different standard of living. So, for example, if we live in Australia and we go, well, I need to have a really big house with 4 bedrooms and two ensuite bathrooms and just for me and my wife. That's what we need. But somewhere like the Philippines, they go, well, the whole family, 4 families would live in that house. Why wouldn't you have 4 families living in that house? You've got 4 bedrooms. And so they are able to live at a way, way, way reduced amount to what any of us can. You can buy food on the streets for like $1. You can buy, a plate of food for like, $1 on the street. So there's a whole lot of things like that that's where it's really, really cheap for them. And as Westerners, sometimes we struggle to get our head around it. So one of the main things people say to me is, oh, it's obviously slave labor. You've obviously got these people and you've chained them all to their desk on the other side of the world. And, you're running a kind of sweatshop. Whereas actually they live a very, very good life, really good life. So,
And
yeah,
tell me what do you want these people to do for you? I mean, I get your point about employing people in low wage economies. I get
mm,
that, and technology enables them to do all sorts of things, of course, as well as people in our kind of countries, the UK and Australia and
yeah,
places. But what is it you're
yeah.
trying to do exactly? I mean, just give us a sense of what does your business do with these people?
Look, the main thing that we do is we're offering primarily like administration and marketing services. So we have a four-pillar approach, and we actually, if say you wanted to grow your following, we would actually go out and find the people that are your ideal client, and we do that by working out where else are your clients currently shopping. And there's a guy in South Africa called Vusi, and he's a motivational speaker, amazing guy, and he uses the example. You wouldn't find Rolls-Royce advertised on TV or in a magazine. Okay. But if you went to an aeroplane show, there'd probably be a Rolls-Royce there where you could buy a Learjet because that's the kind of people that would be wanting, to buy a Rolls-Royce. And so the way that we look at it now is where else are your customers shopping? Where else is your customer buying things? Who else are they talking to? And if we can go to those groups and say, okay, you know, um, we can start commenting on their posts. So imagine if you put out a post and I commented on your post, most people only get one or two comments. So you'd actually say, well, this person keeps commenting on my posts. You'd come and look at my profile. And then once you looked at my profile, I'd start chatting you into a group or some sort of community where I can manage our interactions a bit better. And then from there, I would actually, um, you know, just be building up that rapport and then booking you in for a call. So it's a very systemized approach. It's never just, hey, Paul, lovely to meet you. Why don't we have a call? It's kind of, hey, Paul, lovely to meet you. And I comment on your post. Then you come and say hello to me, and then I kind of give you a lead magnet or something, and then I bring you to a group, and then I give you some more stuff, and then I chat to you about what your problem is, and then I start talking to you. So it's sort of basic baby steps all the way along, which really helps to get people engaged. But the other thing that we do is we've got some people that just do accounts. They maybe just do accounts or they just do admin. So one of the things for smaller businesses is, if you want something done, if you want something done right, we know the saying, do it yourself.
Mm.
And really, a lot of small businesses start off and you kind of the janitor and the social media person and the website creator and the marketer and you fall over in a whole lot of those different avenues. And one of the primary reasons that that happens is because we don't actually have a value on our time.
Mm.
That's one of the main reasons why people do it. So we've got a formula that we use, and we literally just say, what do you want to earn next year? And let's say you wanted to earn $200,000 dollars or pounds next year. You could literally work 40 hours a week. That's about what you'd work for a normal job.
Mm.
And could probably work 50 weeks in the year. So if you took 2,000 hours, you times it by 50, that would give you, sorry, you took 40 hours and you times it by 50, that would give you a figure of 2,000. Now you take the 200,000 and you divide it by that figure, because that's 2,000 is the maximum hours that you can really work.
Yeah.
You divide the 200,000 by the 2,000, and that gives you a figure of $100 an hour. Now that $100 an hour is now your benchmark. So that's what you need to earn every hour. You need to earn $100 an hour if you want to earn 200,000.
Yeah.
But what people do is they say, "Oh, I want to earn $200,000." But then they start doing work that's $8 and $10. They start doing all this work down here. And every hour that you're doing an $8 an hour work job, you're actually losing $92.
Good,
And
because
so the
you're not
next
focused on the high value work. Is that what you're saying?
That's right.
Yeah.
So you should be doing work that's at least $100 an hour. But if you're doing a job that's worth $8 an hour, you basically have lost $92 in that hour. So the next hour, you need to do a work that's worth $192 just to make up for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas if you take your $100 as a benchmark and then you say, okay, I'm going to do anything that's above that. So I'm going to do work that's 120, 150, etc. And I'm going to delegate anything that's down the bottom here. Immediately your income has to go up because you're doing work that's more than what that market is. And I think that figure is something that most people don't actually know, which is a little bit scary because I want to earn 200,000, but I'm not sure, I'm still doing $8 work. And they haven't actually worked out that benchmark. So the 2,000 is a super easy way to just work that out.
And what you're suggesting is that you outsource all of that other low value work to somebody else, perhaps in the Philippines
Yes,
or in some
yes,
other low wage economy. That's basically what you're suggesting, yeah?
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. Now, so I get the logic for your proposition, and I can certainly see why it would be why it would help lots of businesses because, of course, lots of things can now be done online, can't they? They can be done using Zoom
Absolutely.
and all the rest of it because we live in that kind of world now. I mean, tell me about how you built the company. I mean, I've got friends. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur. I've got lots of entrepreneurial friends, and they tell me, building a business is a bit like riding a roller coaster. Good days, not so good days. I mean, what is it that gets you out of bed every day to build the business that you're working on? I mean, what is it that is so important about that to you?
I've been using virtual assistants for probably the last 15 years, and I realized that there was a big discrepancy in kind of what they earned and what the clients were getting.
Mm.
I realized that to a large degree, business owners weren't being supported properly with virtual assistants, and also virtual assistants weren't getting supported properly. So lots of people were taking advantage of them, you know, and so I really wanted to just be fair to everybody. And I was, this is a really good way to get staff. And how could I put systems in place that would make it super easy for people to actually be able to get those staff? And then on the flip side, how would I make it so that the staff actually, had a good deal in the whole thing? Because we are getting them cheap. So how do we make it so that they've got a better deal? And I think that's sort of my main motivator, because I really want to help people. I specialize in helping like NDIS, disability, people that have got disability companies, and also coaches, because one of my main things is to actually help people. And so if I can help people who are helping people, I can multiply what I'm doing. And I try and do that in everything in business. I try and work out, if I'm going to create videos, for example, for my socials, I will sit down and say, how can I create 5 videos in one go?
Mm.
You know, I've put on my outfit, I've combed my hair. How do I just get the 5 videos churned out now, or 10 videos? Or I did 70 videos in one night, for my socials. That's a year's worth of content if
Mm.
you're doing more than one video a week. So yeah. So that's pretty much what drives me. How can I help people to help people?
Sure. One of the things that is also interesting about building businesses is that, I mean, the entrepreneurs I talk to will tell you that they face lots of difficulties, lots of challenges, lots of things that go wrong, and it's very different being the CEO of a and building a business than it is being an employee in a bigger business. I mean, I think there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
How do you approach those challenges? I mean, how do you deal with, for want of a better way of describing it, the kind of red flags that come up when you think, oh God, how do I get around this problem? I mean, what's your
Yeah.
take about that process?
That's an excellent, excellent question. And I learned quite early on that, I would have a bad day. I would have a bad day. I'd lose a customer, for example.
Mm.
And I beat myself up about it the whole week, because I'd be like, oh, I lost the customer. How could I have done better? What could I have served them better? How could I have done this? And you kind of go, well, maybe I should just, give it all up and go and live under a coconut tree. Like. But then what I'd started doing is saying, well, how was my week? And in the week, I maybe got a customer, or I got 2 customers, and I've lost one customer. So
Mm.
my week was good. So then I started looking at my week, and then I started looking at my month, because I might have a bad week, but what did my month look like? Right. And then I started looking at what did my quarter look like? And then what did my last 6 months look like? And then what did this quarter look like compared to last year's quarter? Because that's one thing that we lose sight of. And so we live very much lots of entrepreneurs, we're living in the day to day. And if something bad happens today, it's kind of like, well, I mean, this is all just a waste of time. I should just go and get a job. But we don't actually see how far we've come. We don't see the collateral that we've built up. We don't realize the level that we're at compared to that time last year. So it enables you to start looking at it and realizing that all of these things are minor road bumps.
Yeah.
Granted, there's some big ones. There's some doozies that come along in business. Um, but they're these minor road bumps. And I think if you can not stress about the minor road bumps, and then you can really have some time to focus on those big ones that are going to come.
I mean, they don't
Those big
they,
ones.
they don't feel minor when they happen, though, do they? That's the thing.
They don't, but if you look at them in perspective as to how does this relate to my whole month? Is this going to destroy my whole month? Is my whole month going to be bad? And if my whole month's bad, how is the last 3 months?
Yeah.
You know, and literally, if you're having consistently bad to the point where you're going like, my last 3 months was terrible, and the 6 months before that was terrible, you probably should be doing something else.
Yeah, but I mean, the point you're making, which I think is quite interesting, is you're talking about the value of reflection and spending time thinking about where you're at and what's working and what's not working and what you need to do differently. And like you, I think that's an enormously powerful process.
Mm.
If you don't spend time reflecting on what you're doing, I mean, how do you work out the way forward? So it's a really important process I think you've outlined there.
Yeah.
Tell me about, I mean, one of the things about building a business is you can't, I mean, sometimes you can do it on your own, but for the most part, but you can't do it on your own. You've got to get other
No.
people on board. I mean, what's your take about getting the right people on the bus with you?
I have a theory of fail fast. So how that works is I'll do an interview and I'll go, look, this person sounds like the right person, and I'll put them in. But as soon as I get any sort of indication that they're not the right person, I'm very quick to say, look, it's not working. Thank you very much, and then move on to another person. Um, we obviously do all the normal profiling, so things like disc profiling. Working out their personalities, interviewing them, taking them through a series of interviews. For our virtual assistants, we've got a university, so virtual assistant university. And then they come into the university and they in there for, a week or two, and the staff get an idea, does this person arrive on time? Are they responsive to messages?
Yeah,
And they're doing training with them for that time. And then a lot of times that, they'll either drop out or continue. But I think the fail fast is really, really important because, I had an example the other day. This lady came on and it was a very technical role that she was applying for. And halfway through the interview, I just said, sorry, are you actually just reading the answers? And what she did was she just had ChatGPT open on her computer. Okay. And she was literally, as I was asking the question, ChatGPT was writing the answer for her. And she was literally just reading the answer back to me that she had on her.
that's extraordinary, isn't that? That's totally extraordinary. So what did you do?
Okay.
I mean, what did you do? I mean, she doesn't sound like a good fit.
She's definitely not a good. She's definitely look. I mean, I think that sort of ingenuity is
Yeah,
is great in your business. You've got to find the right place to put that ingenuity. Because I mean, that's ingenious. Okay,
yeah,
that's a whole different level of using ChatGPT. Not the kind of thing you want to put in front of a customer.
yeah.
But lots of times I hire staff and then I go, well, this person's not really right in this role. But that doesn't mean that they're not the right person for another role. So, what are their strengths? What are they really good at? So, you hire a salesperson and they're very timid and quiet and they're not kind of making a lot of sales. But potentially they're an amazing admin person because that's their personality, you know? Or you hire an admin person and they just talk all the time and you go, man, this is killing me. This person isn't doing my work. And then you transfer them to a sales role and you go, wow, they just excel at a sales role because they really want to be talking to people. So, so I think it's about working out where they would fit into your business. I hire very much for attitude and even more than experience. So I think that experience can be trained, but I don't think we can train attitude. Personally, I think that if somebody comes in and they've got the right attitude and you can work with them, you can train them. You can train everything else. You
Yeah,
know.
people can
Now,
learn all those things, can't they? But if they haven't got the right attitude, they won't. I mean,
yeah,
that's a very good point. And what about, I mean, one of the things that's interesting is, you work with people remotely all over the planet. I mean, how
yes,
do you build an environment where that enables, if you like, those individuals to perform at the highest level, to be as effective as possible? I mean, how do you build that culture when in fact you may not ever meet some of those people face to face? I mean, how do you do
Hmm.
that? Because that's one of the challenges of a remote environment is
Yeah.
that issue about culture building. I mean, what's your take on that?
Actually, I was talking to somebody about that today, and the person said to me, "Oh, do you think I have to have meetings with my remote staff? Do you think I need to have meetings with them?" And he was actually an optometrist, and I said, "Imagine if you hired a new person in your practice, your optometry practice, and you said, look, you're going to be the salesperson, and then you just had them there, and then you walked in the morning, didn't even say good morning to them, or maybe just said good morning, and then went into your office and shut the door, and you didn't talk to them for the rest of the day. Okay. You can't expect them to excel. You know, you would need to walk in the morning and just say, hey, how are you going? what's happening? And they'd say, oh, a customer came in yesterday and they're asking me about the blue light filters on the glasses. And I wasn't quite sure what to tell them. And, you could then spend 5 minutes and just say, hey, this is how it works and this is what it does. And, you know, because your staff are really your face of your business. And if your face of your business is unhappy, you're portraying a really, really bad image out to the market. So how do you keep them happy? One of the things that I do is I do a morning huddle with my team. So I actually get them all together and they have to tell me three things that they're going to be working on. So what are the three main things that you're working on for the day? And then they need to tell me one thing that they're grateful for.
Okay.
Now, the grateful for seems like a super simple thing, and I go, hey, Paul, what are you grateful for? And you know that lots of people actually have to stop and really think about that question.
Yeah.
They've kind of got to go, I'm not quite sure. Like, I don't really think I've got anything today. And you go, well, have you got a roof over your head? Do you have clean drinking water? Do you have food in the fridge? And even those basic things. And what it does is because they have to do it every day. And I mean, when with my team in Australia, and we would all gather together in the morning and we'd have a laugh. We'd have a laugh. But what are the three things we're working on? And the gratitude actually builds this amazing culture in your business because you're going, oh, I'm grateful for my kids and my grandkids, for example. And I'd be like, oh, Paul, I didn't even know you had grandchildren. Okay. Or, I'm grateful because I got to take my grandkids to the aquarium because I love dolphins. And you're like, that's something I'd never be able to know about you.
Mm,
So it just brings the whole team together because every time we're telling people what we're grateful for, it's really giving them an insight into our lives.
mm,
Um, and so the whole rest of the day, you've started off your day by going, I'm actually grateful for the fact that I've got food in my fridge, as
shapes
opposed to
people's mindsets, doesn't it?
100%,
Yeah, no,
100%.
I totally get the logic of that. Let me ask you about customers. I mean, again, you've got customers all over the world, and they're remote, aren't they? I mean, that's the other again. I mean,
Yeah.
the two things I want to ask about: what does a good customer look like, and how do you build relationships with them remotely? I mean, start with the what's a good customer for you? I mean, just talk about that, then we'll come back to the second question.
Basically, anybody that needs um, admin work done or needs assistance with their marketing and literally doesn't want to do all the mundane work themselves. So if you were going to be reaching out to people, for example, reaching out to people to be on a podcast, you could reach out and say, hey, Paul, I saw you've got this podcast and I'd love to be on your podcast. Hey, John, I saw you've got a podcast. I'd love to be on your podcast. But that would drive you crazy. And you'd spend all your day on socials and you
Yeah,
wouldn't actually be on any podcasts because it would just take forever. Whereas that mundane task can literally get done now by somebody and they can just reach out every day. And they can also help you to create content and, find out what podcasters are looking for and then, create some of that content to be able to put out there. And what that does is it allows you to then be doing the stuff that you really love doing. Because
mm,
I mean, let's face it, most of us didn't go into business to be sitting up in the middle of the night doing invoicing and
mm,
there's admin paperwork and trying to get that Canva, trying to get those pictures, the pictures on your thing to line up, I mean that's like a day's worth of work. And we didn't go into it for that, I think that a lot of us went into business for one of three reasons. I personally think that most of us went into business for one of three reasons. We either went in because we wanted freedom of time.
mm,
So we wanted to be able to go, hey, you know what? I'm gonna just take some time out today and do this, whatever that is. The second reason was that we wanted to build something that we could sell. Okay. And so we wanted to build a business that we could actually sell one day. And, and the third reason is that we wanted to build a legacy. And the legacy is, you building a podcast now, which is beautiful. And literally you could hand this on to your kids and to your kids' kids, and, the legacy could continue. So the thing that all three of those have got in common is that you're not there.
yeah, yeah. Okay, I get
You're
you.
not there. So if you've got a legacy, you're not there. If you're selling it, you're not there. And if you're having time out of your business, you're not there. So how do you put people in that can actually do that for you. And so those are the type of businesses that I help, people that are just going like, man, I can't do it all. I'm just ready to throw in the towel. There's just too much. I'm working 18-hour days. Um, I wish I could just find somebody that could actually help me to,
It's a very
reach.
interesting way when you put it that way. Actually, I mean, it's very interesting that point that those three areas have got kind of that kind of common theme to it. Let me ask you about the second question about building relationships with those customers. And one of the things that is both exciting and I think challenging. It's exciting to be able to work with people all over the world. I mean, you're in Australia, stroke Africa. I'm here in the UK. I mean, it's really interesting to be able to work with people from different parts of the world. It's also quite challenging to build relationships and to negotiate deals. I mean, tell me about your take on kind of partnership building, if you like, on relationship building with clients. And how do you see that, given that you do it so, you've got so many clients all over the planet.
Well, I'm a firm believer that we should all look at long-term relationships.
Mm,
There's a lot of people that do the churn and burn, where they'll just, they just pretty much sign you up, get your money, and then don't supply the service or supply a subpar service. Um, I really try and get clients long term, and a lot of my clients have been with me for years. Most of my clients have been with me for years. And it's because I have this long-term approach. If something's not working, I want to know straight away. And we may need to replace the staff member. We may need to, replace the system that we're using. We may need to bring in AI to boost promote it, or we may need to just have a meeting with everybody and say, okay, what's working, what's not working, what do we need to change, and move on from there. And I think that's where a lot of businesses fail, is that they kind of they get a customer and then they just don't worry about that customer. And I think I don't know what the figure was, but it's something like 3 times more expensive to get a new customer as it is to keep an existing
yeah,
customer. There's
yeah,
there's some figure like that, which is mind blowing when you think about it. Just keep your existing people happy.
yeah.
Um, and a lot of that relates back to your previous question, where if you can keep your staff happy, your staff actually keep the people happy, the customers happy. So it's not about me keeping the customers happy. My customers come to me and say, "You've got such a beautiful team. I love your team. The energy of your team's amazing. You've got the most incredible, beautiful people on the team." But that kind of, well, I like to think it comes from the top. It comes from the top, It comes from you just saying to a staff member, "You know what, you did a really good job today. I really appreciate what you've done." And that actually saved me a lot of time, because it was something that I was a bit, stressed about. And that feeds down to them, and then they feed that down to your customers.
Mm.
And the more that we learn appreciation in our own business for our staff, the more that our staff actually show appreciation to our clients. And really, it's something that's really lacking, I think, nowadays. Genuine appreciation. I mean, we all know the thank you. Like, we go to McDonald's drive-through and we go, "Thank you," when they give you your meal. But I mean a genuine appreciation. What are you
There's,
thanking them
there's
for?
there's an interesting challenge to that. I mean, I'm a great believer that if you've got the right staff doing the right thing, I mean, they're your most valuable asset. What about if they're not doing the right thing? And what I'm getting at is that you've got a lot of staff in all over the place. I mean, how do you make sure they're doing the right thing? Because if they do the wrong thing, that can equally create problems, can't it? So, I mean, I'm totally with you on the supporting bit and the
Mm.
gratitude bit, but you've also got to find a way to get them focused on the right stuff. I mean,
Yep.
what are your thoughts around that?
So we would track everything. So if you've got a virtual assistant and they're working with you, and let's say you want to grow your group, and you want to grow the people that, the amount of people that you've got in your LinkedIn profile, we would actually be monitoring that. So we'd be monitoring that and say, okay, and because we've got people from all over the world, we can say, well, we can grow the average person's LinkedIn profile by X amount, and we can grow the average person's Facebook by X amount. And if yours isn't growing by that amount, we would be coming in and saying, "Hey, what's happening? There's some misalignment between you and the virtual assistant." Or the product that you're providing.
Okay. So, yeah, so I get that. Let me ask you about markets. I mean, we talked a lot about building relationships with customers. I mean, you're in market, well, you're in a lot of different markets. I mean, what's your take on how you enter new markets, how you build relationships, and particularly in places where they're perhaps not English speaking? I mean, where you're having to deal with other languages. I don't know, somewhere like Southeast Asia, perhaps, where English is. I mean, it's spoken, but it's not necessarily the dominant language. I mean, what's your take on that kind of market entry sort of process, given your environment, given the kind of things that you do?
Look, it's a very interesting question. So I have a lot of coaches that we support in France, and a
Right.
lot of them only talk French.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I have no idea. I have no idea about French, but my graphics team can actually create stuff in English and then, translate it into
Yeah.
French and then create the content. But with that type of thing, you really need a go between you and those people. So for example, the French people have got a French guy who's actually a coach who coaches them, and then he offers our services as part of the package. And so how that works is they kind of trust him, and then they use our service, and then we can actually do the translation. And I mean, literally now with uh, the Google Translate and a whole lot of the AI, I could be talking to you in a different language and it would just translate what you're saying. I could actually hear you in English, even if you were talking a different language. And then,
Yeah.
one of the new AIs that they've got, when you get somebody calls you from a call center, and I mean, sometimes personally, I get a call and it's an Indian person, and I'm like, oh, they want to try and sell me a website, or they want to do something with my website, or okay. And so I pick up the call, I hear the accent, and maybe I'm a bit biased already because I'm just, I've been marketed to by Indian people for websites for a long time. They can actually have got an AI now where they can actually change their voice so they can sound American
Yeah.
or British or anything. So they talking and it's completely taking the accent out.
Yeah. The technology is extraordinary, isn't it? But what, I mean,
Oh.
to come back to your thing about France, I mean, what made you decide to go into the French market? I mean, why did you say, okay, I'm going to go and do a load of work with coaches or whoever you're working with in France? I mean, why not Italy? Why not Spain? Why not, um, I don't know, Singapore? I mean, how did you pick that market to go at?
We generally try and go into English markets. So I generally go into English speaking markets. And that's why, Australia, UK, USA, they're all easy because they're English speaking. I get stuff from the Philippines, they're all English speaking. I put them into those marketplaces. Um, we had a couple of people that we were supporting, and they referred some other people, and those people were in different markets. So the French one was really just somebody that referred a person that was
Right.
a French coach. And initially, I try to get French people in the Philippines, who talk English and French, almost impossible. But there's a whole heap of them in Egypt.
Oh, really?
So
Okay.
Egypt is full of, Egypt and Tunisia,
Right.
because
Okay.
they basically talk French, or
Francophone
if
countries. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, or if you're a little bit more well-to-do, you send your kids to Europe to school. So they go to Europe and they go and learn German, or they learn French, or and so they would talk Arabic, English, and French. So that's why that's how that market actually opened
Right.
for us. But a lot of times, we literally just my whole thing's about helping people. So somebody comes to me and they're from, it doesn't matter what country they're from. I'm like, you've got a problem. How can I go and find the solution? And then how can I sell you that solution?
Mm.
That's literally what it is.
Yeah.
Um,
That focus on helping people, I guess, is a bit of a guiding North Star, isn't it, for you?
yeah, yeah.
Let me ask you about the journey that you've been on. I mean, you've been at this a little bit while, and you've done some really interesting stuff. When you look back on the journey, I mean, what sort of things would you say you've learnt from it?
I think the number one thing is that you do need to delegate. And it's something that a lot of us aren't that good at.
Mm.
It's something that we kind of lots of times we actually don't delegate because we've got mindset issues around delegation. So, we've been told if you want to do it, if you want something done properly, you need to do it yourself. Okay. Or nobody can do it as well as what I can. And so, this is only going to take me 20 minutes, all those usual things that we've had our whole life. And so we end up trying to do everything ourselves, and we end up either burning out or not making any money or, being frustrated. And I was very fortunate when I was a younger man. I actually met an old guy, mentor, and he said to me, he said, Louis, I remember saying to him, I said, I can't hire staff. They're all idiots. Okay. I just can't hire somebody that can do what I want them to do. They don't do what I want them to do. And he said, Louis, they're never going to do what you want them to do. They're not motivated like you are. It's not their business. They're not going to work, 18 hours a day for minimum wage like you would when you're setting up a business. But he said, tell me, could you get somebody to do 60% of what you do?
Mm.
And I said, yeah, look, I mean, somebody could do 60%. I mean, realistically, your ego would have to be massive if you didn't think somebody could cover 60% of what you do. And I was like, yeah, I could get somebody to do 60%. So he said, okay, so you hire that person, and now you've immediately got 160% production. And then you hire a second person who also only does 60%, and now you've got 220% production,
Mm.
and so forth, and so forth, and so forth. And so that really opened my eyes, because a lot of us think that I'm going to delegate to somebody and I'm going to get them to do 100% like I do,
So
which
what you're
is
saying is that you're using people as multipliers, really.
absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. And in terms of that journey, what would you say has been the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome? I mean, I suspect you've had a few. Is there anything really in particular, really anything really challenging when you look back that you thought, God, that was hard?
Um, Look, I think exits from businesses, they can either be, good, or they can be really bad. So when you build up a business, lots of times we build up a business and we actually build up our identity. The whole business becomes our identity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'd go to a party and people would say, "Oh, how are you going?" And I'd say, "Oh, great, I'm up to 100 staff." And then next time they'd see me, like, "How are you going?" I'd be like, "Oh, I'm up to 200 staff." And so my whole identity was attached around the fact that, you've got this big company. And when you sell it, when you either have a positive or a negative exit, either one, you've got this whole identity attached to this previous entity that you're no longer part of.
Mm.
And I think that that's a really, really hard part,
Mm.
because even though I've done it so many times, every time you go, maybe it was a fluke. Maybe it was a fluke. Maybe the last business was a fluke. Um, and on that, I actually started coaching. I had this big business, got out of the business, and then I started coaching. And the previous business, grown it to having 450 staff, turning over 35 million. So like a bigger business. And then I started coaching people. And I don't know if you know about the imposter syndrome, but
Mhm.
I actually got imposter syndrome because I'd go, Paul, I'm here to help you. And you'd say, oh, Louis, what should I do with my marketing? And I'd be like, how am I really justified to tell you what to do with your marketing? Because like I had a marketing team, I built up a marketing team, and I had an accounts team, and I had, and now I'm talking to one person and saying, well, you should really try this or do this. And then, I kind of felt that I was out of touch with I don't want to say lower level, but the more granular
Yeah.
part of it. And that was the real reason why I started the virtual assistant business, was because I wanted to kill the imposter. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to start a business just so that I can show people that I actually know what I'm doing. And so I started the business from scratch. And, within about a year, I had 50 staff and I was turning over, 500,000. And then I was like, okay, I do actually know how to do this stuff. But it goes back to that thinking it's a fluke and having your identity attached to it and thinking, well, maybe that was just a fluke that I was able to do that previously.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
no, I
yeah,
understand that. You hear that a lot from people. You've mentioned a couple of times bits of advice that you've had from people. I mean, when you look back, what's the best bit of advice you've ever been given?
I think the delegation one stands out to me. It definitely stands out to me because I've been very fortunate in that I've had, by the time I was 30, by the time I was 30, I had 200 staff, Last business I had 450 staff. So I've actually been able to manage big amounts of staff. And I think the one of the main reasons was because I actually realized that principle of delegation, where you're not expecting 100% from every single person. And you're putting in systems and processes so that people, you're putting in these parameters. So I want 60% from you, but I've got parameters, so that I know that I'm getting 60%. I don't expect you to give me 100%
Yeah,
of what I can
it's
do.
kind of trust but verify, isn't it? Is what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. So even with, for example, with our virtual assistants, most companies, you'd go there and just get a staff member to help you with your marketing. We actually would provide a staff member to help you with your marketing, and then I've got a coach. So I've got a Filipino coach who actually would manage that person. So besides the normal people that would manage the clocking on and clocking off and holidays and all that, this person just manages your VA to make sure that you getting the performance. And so they're the one who's looking at it and saying, well, how's everybody else doing at the moment on
Yeah.
Facebook, for example? And then why are you doing less? How do I help you to boost that? Okay. Um, and that gives a lot of accountability, to
And it
the
acts as a kind of
staff.
a quality improvement system as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we do a monthly audit and then we will go through the audit and say, what could the customer have done better? What could the staff have done better? What could we now replace with AI? Because AI is coming through so fast. I mean, we're running stuff on AI every day. And there's processes where, we spoke earlier about doing our videos, and we used to do a video like this, and then we take the video and make it into shorts and use it on socials. And that was done by my graphics team. Took them a week or two to do. Now we just use Opus, Opus Clip or Opus Pro, and we pretty much put it in there. It cuts out all the shorts, creates captions, takes out the ums and ahs, and it's ready to put out onto our socials straight away. But we need to be able to bring that to market and actually help clients with that so that they're getting as much benefit as they can from their VAs as quickly as what they can. And I always refer to it and I say, imagine if you worked in a, if you worked in a factory and then you said, I just needed somebody to, carry boxes and stuff around. And somebody had there were two staff members and somebody's company had a staff member and then my company gave you a staff member, but they had a bionic suit, so they could just pick up a whole pallet of boxes. Obviously, you'd go for the guy with the bionic suit. I mean, it's cool, but you'd go for the guy with the
Yeah.
bionic suit. And that's how AI is. AI is really just this tool, like an add-on to the human to be able to allow them to perform better than what they normally would.
Yeah. And just a couple of final questions before we wind up. I mean, I mean, you've obviously had a long career. What's the thing you're most proud of? What's the achievement that, really makes
Um,
you feel good?
there's so many, but setting up my teams in the Philippines was always, because with a lot of that stuff, it was kind of just a dream. So I had a dream that this would work. Um, and when it actually does work, and then you go there and you've got 18 staff and they're all working, and you're saving $45,000 a month because you've put in 18 offshore staff. That's pretty. That's a pretty powerful motivator
Yeah, I get
because
that.
you've kind of come from a dream to being able to accomplish this. But I think most businesses are like that, You start a business and you go like if for me, I genuinely believe that I make life better for, business owners and I make better life better for the Filipino staff, which was my grand idea. And I really feel like I've accomplished it, which gives you that sense of accomplishment. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's a
yeah.
very valid point there. One last thing. I mean, you've mentioned AI a couple of times. I mean, what's your take on the way AI is going to change how things work in the next few years? I know we're still fairly early days around AI, but what's your take on the way it's going to shake down?
Look, we use AI extensively, okay? And AI is going to change I mean, it is already changing the whole marketplace massively.
Yeah,
So, at the moment we kind of build, if you go onto my Facebook, you'll see that there's versions of me on my Facebook that do the presentation just like this, tell you about products, and it's not me. It's not me and it's not my voice. It's a copy of me and it's a copy of my voice. And we create those for people. And those are some of them are still a little bit iffy. The accent's not quite there, and the nuances of conversation are not quite there, but they're getting so much better
yeah,
every single day.
they are, aren't they? Yeah,
Yeah, and then we have stuff like, like Google came out with that Nano Banana, and Nano Banana was, I could just take a picture of you and kind of say, make it into this, or, you know, take any some photographer in the world and say, well, I want you to recreate that picture, but using Paul's picture.
yeah,
Um, and an interesting thing on that, ChatGPT, if I took your picture previously and I put it into ChatGPT and I said, please create um, Paul into an Elvis, right? It would create an Elvis, but it wouldn't look exactly like you. It would change your face slightly because of copyright, because of copyright. Nano Banana came along and I could say, take Paul's picture and put it in there and create a picture of Elvis, and it would create an exact picture of you looking like Elvis. Okay. So previously we had to create a picture of you looking like Elvis, and then we had to do, I don't know if you ever saw that thing on Facebook where you did a face swap. Did you ever see
yeah,
that one?
yeah, yeah,
So we would actually do a face swap. So we'd actually create a picture of you, and then we'd do a face swap to put your face onto that picture so to bypass the copyright thing. Then Nano Banana came out, skipped the copyright. They just made it exactly like you looking like Elvis. And now GPT's just gone, well, if Nano Banana's doing it, they also just doing it.
yeah, yeah.
So the scary part is that you can literally put somebody's face on anything.
Yeah, no, and
Yeah.
scary, I think, is the word that comes to mind when you describe that. I
Yeah.
mean, whichever way it shakes down, it's going to be an interesting couple of years, is my view.
Oh,
It's so exciting. It's so exciting. It's well, I think it's sort of kind of exciting and terrifying at the same time, really. But certainly, it's going to be interesting. I think.
yeah.
Yeah,
Look, I think that the amazing part is that for a lot of people, AI obviously is the future. We know that. We know that that's where it's going. But I don't want to have to learn how to, I don't want to have to learn how to use Nano Banana, for example, to post on my socials. And that's where we train the VAs. So you come in and we say, we've got a VA. Your VA will already know how to make you look like Elvis, or, you know, have you on a horseback on the beach if your post is about, something like that, for example.
mm,
Your AI, your VA can actually use the AI to cut up your podcast and post it on your socials. So the that's the whole point. The whole point is to have humans plus AI to actually assist you.
mm.
So yeah, I think the future's, look, it's got some very scary stuff to it, but I think it's phenomenal in a lot of ways.
Yeah, interesting times. Lewis, thank you for taking a bit of time to come and share that story. Absolutely fascinating, and some really useful pointers in there. So I really appreciate that. I'm sure people will find those most helpful. Look forward to speaking to you again soon.
No worries. Thank you so much, Paul. I really, really appreciate it. And excellent questions. Actually, your questions show a real depth of understanding.
Well, thank you.
Sometimes I
Not
do.
many people would say that about me, so I
No,
appreciate
sometimes I do the podcast and people will ask a question. They don't actually quite understand how business works,
it.
you know. Whereas you've got a depth of understanding into business, which is phenomenal. And I mean, I've seen that from the other people that you've interviewed. Your stuff is phenomenal. So
The
thank
joys of
you
getting
very much.
old. It's the joys of getting old. Anyway, Lewis, good to speak to you, and I'll see you again soon.
No worries. Thank you, Paul.
Cheers.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.